Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux with the Banner Press, welcoming you almost as always to the show, joined this week by journalist Casper Wehrhahn. Casper, good to have you in, sharing some of the details of the news that was this week.
Good to be here once again, and I must say, I feel like I need to have been in one of my warmer tone shirts for this week's episode.
Man, how are you not sweating? As you can obviously see in the background, it is beautiful in the NACTV studio down in beautiful downtown Neepawa today. So as you can most clearly tell, a new background for us to be able to work off of. A lot of new things coming into the spring, some new glasses as well for me as well, which means a new prescription for me as well, which means old eyes. But spring is all about renewal, and hopefully I'll eat a few more carrots that come out of the ground, out of the local gardens, and be able to fix that sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, definitely looking forward to that spring weather and just feeling that freshness that comes with spring and having all the green pop out again after a long winter.
And as well, when you get into the spring, that of course leads inevitably into the summer. And the summer is a huge season for one of our local attractions. That is the beautiful Plains Museum. Over the last few years, they've always done a lot to sort of innovate and expand, even under trying times that started back in 2020 and moving into 2024 now. And Casper, you had an opportunity to get a little bit of an update and some details on what they've got planned and what they've done for 2023 and leading into 24.
Yeah, always great to have a sit down with Helen Drysdale there, the board chair for the museum. She stopped in and sat down with me, had a little chat, and just gave me a bit of a rundown of the updates that they had from the museum, some things that they had done, and of course what's coming up. And yeah, it sounds like it was a busy year for them, of course, and it's going to be another busy one. They had some good updates in there with lighting, which I actually don't think I knew was in their project roster previously. But it sounds like that is great. It's phenomenal for them. They have most of the lights replaced with new fixtures.
Yep.
The old fixtures were quite out of date, and you actually couldn't get bulbs for them anymore. Can't buy them anywhere.
Yeah.
So they've got new ones in there now, and it sounds like the lighting is a whole lot better. So that's obviously a boon to them. And running down there to get a photo to put on the front page with this story, you'll notice a very big difference on the outside of the museum. If you're familiar with it the way I am, you remember if you go down there, it used to be white, didn't it? And you would be correct. At some point, the museum's building was painted white. All the bricks were painted white. And that actually isn't true to how it was in the past.
Yeah.
It was a different color, and you know, when you paint over bricks, or at least these bricks, I don't know about all bricks, it's actually not great for the bricks. So for that reason, and partially to restore the history of that as well a little bit in that sense, they actually had a major project that we did do a story on before to restore those bricks to their original look. So they look fantastic. They're a very stunning red now. I think they had to do some sort of staining to achieve that, but that brings it back to its original look, which is just fantastic. That stuff that they've done already. And they have a lot more that's coming up. One of the big things I'm looking forward to, I have to say, is they're looking at opening their fire garage exhibit now this year. I don't recall the month. I think it's going to be June or July. They're hoping to do that, and they've got a fire truck in there that's got some great history behind it, and looking to have some photos and whatnot in there as well to add to the exhibit too.
That is fantastic, and to be able to share some of those details with you in the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press is just wonderful as well. If you haven't had a chance to experience it for yourself over the last few years, whether for one reason or another. They did have to have some closures down during some those tumultuous times we all deal with. It's amazing when we go back into the archives and talk about stories that we're following up. We've always got to preface it with these tumultuous times of 2021, part of 22. That's part of our history now, that a lot of these things have to deal with. But it's nice to be at this point in time where we're talking about them getting past those obstacles, past those issues, and seeing the light again, as it were.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great to see things moving forward. I mean, they did as good a job they could, of course, throughout the pandemic, and with things being to a lesser degree now, it allows them more freedom for sure to get these things done, and then of course show them to the public, which ultimately that's what it's there for. They want to show these things to the public, share that history. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't know for sure, and people in the area aside from me as well that would definitely take an interest in it. And it is an area museum. Like, it's in Neepawa, sure, but it is the Beautiful Plains Museum, and that extends far past Neepawa to the surrounding communities in the area that is outlined by the Beautiful Plains area. And yeah, I mean, it's great to have this sort of facility here and accessible. It provides a unique look at many different things that pertain to the culture and history of the province and the area. And yeah, there's a lot more in the story as well that I'm not sharing here, but that's why you need to pick up a hard copy of the paper and see the full details for yourself.
Most definitely. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Neepawa Banner Press. You can see this story on the Beautiful Plains Museum on page 1. Carries over to page 7 in this week's edition of the newspaper. And we always got to remember, I mean, as Casper said, it is Beautiful Plains, it is regional, but we do have a lot of viewers outside of Neepawa and surrounding areas that watch the show actually on a consistent basis. Just a little side right now, recently had to attend a family event in the Interlake region and ran into an individual gentleman who said, "Oh yeah, I know you from the TV show." It was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So apparently we always do appreciate, even if you're not from Neepawa, even if you're not from the surrounding Westman area, if you're a consistent viewer of NACTV, thank you very much. We do appreciate that, as we are broadcast nationally over many cable systems. Check your local cable listings to check out NACTV. Well, you don't have to. You're already here. You know what's going on. But if you got friends that don't know what's going on, tune them into that. It's always greatly appreciated. So let's talk about something. In fact, our next story is going to be something not just people of Neepawa get to deal with, but everybody everywhere gets to deal with, whether they like it or not. But we're going to focus mainly just on right here in town. That is spring and potholes. It's something we all have to deal with if you're a motorist, if you're a driver, even if you're not someone who drives a mechanized vehicle, cyclists. It is so inconvenient for cyclists as well. And we have many cycling enthusiasts that live in Neepawa now. So that makes a day-to-day sort of jaunt out and about difficult for them. But the town of Neepawa is doing what they can. They're planning ahead, and they understand, they see it. They have to deal with it just as much as we do. During the most recent meeting of the town of Neepawa, their council, the manager of operations sat down and shared some of the details with them about what's going to be happening, Denny Seki, and he also shared with us as well some of the things that are going to be going on with that. They're making plans right now, going to be bringing in contractors to see what they can do about getting these filled in. Now, it's always important to understand that you just can't grab a pile of dirt, or you just can't pile a bunch of patch and put it in the hole right now willy-nilly. That's just not the way it works. You can do it, but you're not going to do it well, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to do what you need it to do. So with the weather the way it is, it's still a little wet out there. They got to wait for everything to dry out a bit. And that's what they have to do. And again, a town the size of Neepawa may not have the contractor's in place immediately. So it may take a little bit longer than what you'd like, but just stay patient with it and understand. One good thing, and I appreciate Diane Warner for the Neepawa Banner Press, was able to be on the spot and in the moment and got a picture of some representatives with Manitoba Highways who were out and about and on mountain and were filling in the potholes. If you're a consistent viewer of the show and reader of the Banner Press, you know the background behind Mountain Avenue, but for those of you who don't, Mountain used to be a provincial highway, so it falls under the jurisdiction of the province of Manitoba. They got to take care of it, for better or for worse sometimes, but they're the ones looking after that. So they did have workers out there last week clearing out and filling in some of those potholes to deal with. So it's important to sort of understand what's going on with that. So if you can find a moment or two of your time, you can find that story. It's available on page 2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Right next to a media release that we got, although we filled in some of the blanks and some of the details and made it a little bit of our own, from CAA Manitoba. It is spring, it is that time of year again for Manitoba's Worst Roads campaign. This is a program they've been putting on for several years, and they want to spotlight some of the worst in Manitoba when it comes to road conditions. And they have an online option, and we have that in the story. You can check that out and get some information. If you live in a community where it's less than ideal and you want to put a spotlight on it for better or worse, you can find it there, because there are so many different sort of, like, perfect example, Casper, was, oh my God, 18th Street in Brandon. It is without a doubt one of the worst right now. I used to live there in the 90s, in the early 2000s. I spent about 10, 12 years in Brandon, and then I started my career at a radio station in Brandon. That was about another 5 or 6 years.
Right.
So I'm familiar with the community. And the roads used to be immaculate. They used to be incredible, but none of the roads, for the most part, especially 18th Street, are looking their best right now. And they were on the list last year as one of the 10 worst in Manitoba. And as you'd imagine, a lot of Winnipeg streets were in there as well.
Oh, yes. It'll definitely be interesting to see how this year's list, once everything gets finalized, compares to last year's. Maybe see if some of the same contenders are on there again this year, and if they are, how they rank this time around, if they're going to be higher, if they're going to be lower, that sort of thing.
And again, for some of you that watch the show and maybe complain, well, why is Neepawa not on that list? Well, a couple of reasons. First off, I mean, we're a smaller community, so fewer votes. But as well, I mean, when you are a smaller community as well, you don't have the immediate options that a community such as Winnipeg or a community such as Brandon has. Winnipeg has in-house workers and machinery that can take care of these roads like that. Same with Brandon. You have in-house and you have readily accessible contractors in the city itself that you can hire to get it looked after. Neepawa, unfortunately, is a little further down the list. So you've got to sort of take the good with the bad when it comes to small town community living. It feels like there shouldn't be an excuse for roads in Brandon or in Winnipeg to be the way they are. But again, other people will make the argument, Casper, that there's more people and therefore more drivers and more cars out on the road. It's just going to wear things out a whole heck of a lot quicker. So you got that sort of argument on either side of the table, as it were.
Right, yeah, for sure. And Neepawa, of course, also has that unique challenge of, as you mentioned before, aside from the main highway that goes through Neepawa, we also do have Mountain Avenue here, which was, I believe, the number 4 highway. See that come up every now and then in archives. So that is still under, the provincial sort of aspect of things. So, you have another level to collaborate with to try and get that in and repaired or filled, whichever. So there's definitely some unique challenges to both, I'm sure, and trying to keep those up to the level that they should be. But yeah, there's definitely been some pretty interesting potholes, of course, coming into the spring season there very slowly with the weather that we've had over the course of the winter, and as things started to warm up there a little bit earlier before spring. I know there's some really bad ones on the highway area in particular that I happened to come across. Some pretty nasty ones. I mean, there was one that just like absolutely swallowed tires. I don't remember when that one got filled in, but thankfully that one did get filled in eventually. I think it kind of flew under the radar there for a while. There was another one at the same lights there that I think got patched a few times just because it was quite large and had quite the lake of water in it there as well. So, of course, you know, with the moisture and all that and cars going over it, it does kind of splash out during that period as well.
What I kind of find interesting with that as well, Casper, is there's two local ones adjacent to two local businesses, and I'm not going to name the local businesses because it's not fair to them, because I don't know who's responsible for the potholes and damage in question. There's two local ones where you drive in and out of parking lots that are part of it, and there's potholes right there, right as you're driving out at both of these local businesses. And I was wondering about this. I'm wondering whose responsibility when it comes to this, because it's sort of on private property, but at the same time it's sort of adjacent to and going onto the highway or the road, as it were. So whose responsibility are those little things? So it's kind of interesting to sort of see these types of things, and hopefully whomever's responsible for those ones in particular will be able to get them looked after sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, yeah, that's definitely something I'm curious about as well, and I kind of like to find that out just for the sake of curiosity, because yeah, I mean, what happens when you do have that situation, if it's on partially private property and then highway, for example, or like partially private property and then a town road.
Yeah.
Does that fall to the town or highways, or does it fall to, the property owner? So kind of a pickle there.
Well, we're going to find out most definitely this spring, because there's a lot of work to do, and hopefully a lot of work that will be done. Of course, you can find those stories, as we said, on page 2 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. You can find physical copies anywhere in and around Neepawa, just under 30 communities throughout the Westman region in which we will deliver those papers, including Brandon. If you're not able to get a physical copy of the paper, always remember that it goes live every Friday morning at around 9 a.m. Central Time on mywestman.ca. Now don't forget, it goes live, a PDF version, which you can open up like a digital newspaper online on mywestman.ca. So let's go over a little further into the pages of the newspaper and talk about a release we got sent to us. Very appreciative of this information about Habitat for Humanity. A Neepawa chapter of Habitat for Humanity is going to be opening up and is in the process of opening. John Lavich is the one who's spearheading this endeavor. Wonderful to see. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the background of Habitat for Humanity, I'll just break it down to you in most simplest term. They are inspired and dedicated towards creating affordable housing options in communities. And it's wonderful to see. They've been doing work for generations, as it were. This will be before your time, and maybe you're unfamiliar with the gentleman. But I remember former U.S. President Jimmy Carter is the most famous supporter of Habitat for Humanity, because he would help them physically help them build buildings. He's from Georgia. So he'd go down to Georgia, his old stomping grounds, as it were, and do that. Even up until recently, I think he's almost 97, 98 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he would still be out and about doing that type of stuff. So that's sort of how I know Habitat for Humanity and the things that they do. So having something like that here in Neepawa, I think, is wonderful to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially these days, I mean, there's a lot of talk about housing and trying to get affordable housing for people, which is quite a challenge. So seeing an initiative like this to help people get accommodation in some way is fantastic. Yep. It's great to have that here.
And it's most likely a story we're very much going to follow further in the future editions of the Banner Press. Let's go over and talk about another tradition for Neepawa. Casper, you had an opportunity with your own eyes, as opposed to somebody else's eyes. Why are you carrying somebody else's eyes? I don't know. But with your own eyes, you were able to see some of the things that go on with the Farm and Leisure Lottery and how they are here and help out the medical clinic. So run us through how things have been going with that.
Well, I have to say this was quite something. I've never stopped into these operations before myself, but I went down to the town office there. They had some area set up for the Farm and Leisure Lotto committee and all its volunteers, etc., that takes the calls and whatnot for the Farm and Leisure Lotto. And I have to say it was quite something. I even say in the story there, it was kind of like walking in and seeing a well-oiled machine at work. I mean, they had desks, they had the phones, they had all the pen and paper and all that set up, and just seeing them work away was kind of fantastic. But it sounds like it's well underway there. I mean, this is a great annual fundraiser for the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic. And in the past, I think they did for, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was for Country Meadows one year. Might have been a different facility. I'd have to, you'd have to double check with Mary Ellen Clark on that. But I spoke to Mary Ellen Clark there, and pickup on this seems to be really good already. I mean, it's a well-known fundraiser, so people who know it already know that it's going on. They send stuff out to, I guess, regulars each year as well, which helps them out. Yep. But they've had a really strong online uptake this year, which was kind of interesting to hear.
The last couple years, they have sort of strengthened their efforts in terms of getting the message out online and in order of buying online, which is really, as you said, worked out quite well for them. The 50-50 is really off the charts right now. Just looking at your story here, it was sitting at just over 47,000 for the 50-50, and that is amazing. Those numbers are near their peaks, their all-time highs for that, with a little bit of room to spare.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's only going to continue to grow, I assume, because there's still quite a way until they do their final draw. I think they just did their early bird not too long ago, so we might hopefully have something that way to share with everybody on that. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of time yet for that to pick up more steam. So I'm kind of like, what is this gonna hit? what's the absolute peak gonna be by the time this is done? Because I mean, just hearing about the total that they've accumulated throughout the years of doing this is also quite outstanding, which I think I had that somewhere in the paper there. I think it was just a few thousand under like 2 million or something, which is phenomenal. I mean, it goes towards a great cause, that's for sure. I mean, the community...
medical clinic has expanded so incredibly over the years because of the efforts of the lottery.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, that's something that you love to see. I mean, with any growing community, you need facilities and resources to expand with that, and especially because I mean we have surrounding areas that are catered to as well through this facility and other facilities that are in Neepawa as well, especially with closures of others in some communities that we've had over the years. That's a lot more draw into here to those medical facilities. So seeing this continue to get that sort of amount of support so that they can keep doing what they're doing and keep expanding their services is great.
That's right. Now stay tuned. You can find that information online. If you're able to support the 17th Annual Farm and Leisure Lottery, it's always appreciated. It goes to a very good cause, and of course it's some wonderful prizes there as well. All right, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to quickly go through a couple items here. One specifically, hopefully you're going to be able to sort of take the time and see it either live or see it right here on NAC TV. Check your local listings for the replay times, the rebroadcast times of the Neepawa Titans playoff games. They are in the first round of their series versus the Verdun Oil Capitals. as we are recording this right now, they have a game scheduled for tonight. We record this, of course, on Thursday, March 28th, if I remember off the top of my head. So if you're not able to get down there and see it, definitely check your listings to see the games. They played one game, game 2 already here, and it was a really thrilling, dramatic overtime win for the Titans. They were able to defeat Verdun 3-2 in that overtime session, double overtime, to tie the series at 1 game each. Verdun has the better record on the season, so they get the home ice advantage. Game 1, they were able to win 6-1. Neepawa was able to win game 2, as I just mentioned, in overtime. And actually, after the paper went to publication, they played game 3 in Verdun. Unfortunately, again, that was an Oil Capitals victory, a 6-3 win. So as we're recording this, Verdun has a 2-1 series lead on the Neepawa Titans. So if you get an opportunity to go down to the Yellowhead Center, definitely check it out live. It was really nice to see that playoff atmosphere in Neepawa. They had the attendance online listed at 539 people, and I gotta be honest, it felt like that was less than what were actually in the building. It felt like it was, and looking at the seats and the capacity and all that, it felt like there were around 750 in there, but I didn't go around, Casper, counting every single 1, 2, 3, 4, no. That would take too long. That would take way too long. But it was great, and it was a good atmosphere as well. When there's something to get behind, and in this town, when it comes to sports, they really do get behind it. Be it the basketball, which is extremely popular here in Neepawa, be it hockey on any level, when the Tigers high school team does well, when the Titans do well, even when the Farmers, the senior A team, really get on a roll, the community really starts to get behind it. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a few more games to be able to talk about right here on the Story Behind the Stories. Either way, though, this has been a real success story for Neepawa this year, to be able to make the playoffs for the first time since 2017, and to see some of the atmosphere and the attitude going on in and around the community that has come about to support it. Now, you can find that and a few pictures on page 12, I believe. No, page 10 of this week's edition of the Banner Press. Now, just with a couple minutes left, just going to quickly talk about the high school team as well. Neepawa Tigers hockey team, they finished off the Westman High School Hockey League Championships against Vincent Massey. It was a huge game. Maybe you saw it right here on NAC TV. It was live on. It was live immediately after the bingo, of course, because priorities. You got to have the bingo. The bingo. We have no qualms saying point blank, bingo is the be-all and end-all, as it should be. It's the most watched, it's the most popular show, I believe, on NAC TV. So it's wonderful to see that support for that endeavor. But there was also some great support as well for the hockey game. People watched the first period of that deciding game online, and there were some record-setting numbers in terms of online viewers for that. And then after the bingo was over, it all transferred over live to NAC TV. They were able to show that game. It wasn't the ending we had all hoped for. Vincent Massey ended up winning the third and deciding game of the high school championship and taking the series. But it was still a tremendous effort by the Tigers. You can find that story, that write-up about the season that was, and some of the efforts that the players put in there. And I hope you take a few minutes to read through it and just learn a little bit about that, because it was really nice to see that type of community spirit come together and support those kids the way that it did, because they played their hearts out. So it was really nice to see. There's so many other things we could talk about. There's only so many minutes in the day, so that's why you're going to have to pick up a copy of the Banner Press. And don't forget, you can always give us some tips by contacting us at 476-3401 or via email at news@neepawabanner.com. So, Casper, thank you as always for walking us through the stories. Always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
And again, thank you for tuning in each and every week and learning a little bit about the story behind the stories. Have yourself another fantastic weekend.